all. Kinsey Schofield here. Welcome to Crown and Conflict, a series dedicated to dissecting the most riveting royal scandals in history. Today's guest, well, I know you know this face, you know this voice. He is a friend of the show, Dickie Arbiter, former press secretary to the late Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles III. For 12 pivotal years, Dickie stood at the very epicenter of royal power, controlling the narrative during some of the monarchy's most turbulent moments, from the breakdown of Charles and Diana's marriage to the unimaginable death of Princess Diana. In his memoir, On Duty with the Queen, Dickie pulls back the curtain on palace life, revealing not just how the crown managed crisis, but how the Queen herself navigated duty, discipline, and dignity under relentless public scrutiny. Few people have seen the monarchy at its most vulnerable, and fewer still were trusted to speak for it. Today, we're diving into the moments the palace couldn't spin. Dickie, Happy New Year. And what a privilege it was to read your book.
Thank you very much. And a Happy New Year to you and to all our wonderful viewers and subscribers.
I'm assuming they recognize my tie. This is the Dickie tie. This is the infamous Dickie tie.
I've got a new mantra for 2026 that I'll try and wear a tie as little as possible, which is why I haven't got a tie on today.
I love that this New Year's resolution. Getting to know you a little bit deeper today, and now I know a New Year's resolution of yours. Can we start on a happier note? In your book, you have the sweetest story. You write about Princess Diana giving you a bottle green cashmere jumper. This was for your 50th birthday, which the math isn't mathing, Dickie, because I thought for sure you were 50 years old right now. But Princess Diana gives you this gift for your 50th birthday. And you say that you still, and you wrote this book in 2014, but you're like, I haven't found an occasion suitably important to wear it. You said it still sits in my wardrobe as pristine as the day she gave it to me. What is the status of that jumper today?
Exactly the same. It's still in my wardrobe. I still haven't worn it. I lie. I've worn it once. She gave it to me for my 50th birthday. Are you sitting comfortably?
Yes.
That was 35 years ago.
Oh my God, Dickie, you're aging like a fine wine. That is so sweet. And you were impressed by the gift. You liked this gift.
I loved it, but I'm not a jersey man. I don't wear jerseys. I don't wear cardigans. I just get warm by wearing jackets or fleece or something like that. I never go anywhere posh enough to wear a jersey anyway, certainly not a bottle green. And it's lovely. It's cashmere. And dare I say, it's commercial. It's from Turnbull and Asser in Jermyn Street.
Oh my gosh.
We've all heard of Turnbull and Asser, and it's a lovely jersey. I suppose I'd better wear it before I die, hadn't I?
Well, to me, it's so interesting that somebody that is remembered for her fashion sense would dress you, would try to dress you. So that's kind of a fun fact about Diana, that she also would look at somebody and dress them as well.
Yeah, she gave me an Hermes tie as well on one occasion, which is not as bright as the tie that you're wearing and not as bright as the ties I normally wear, but it is bright. It's a black background and it's got very bright stripes in it. But I think I've only worn that 3 times since she gave it to me.
I haven't, I don't think I teased you for this question, so I apologize, but I did want to make a point to mention one of the things that really stood out to me and surprised me in a pleasant way was that you were recruited for this position. You didn't wait in a long line and you didn't pray for this job. This job came to you because they were so impressed by the way you handled yourself in the media. Is that correct to say?
Well, that's very kind of you to say that. And I suppose, yes, I got a phone call. I mean, the short story is I was about to leave for Australia to cover the late Queen's bicentennial tour. And that was I was leaving in April 88. And I had a phone call the night before I left asking if I was offered a job, would I be interested? I was coming up to 48. I'd be stupid to say, no, I wasn't interested, because in those days, it didn't matter what you did. Retirement age was 60. And I had 12 years left. So I thought I needed a change. And I said yes. and the rest is history. So yeah, it was a phone call. Today you've got to advertise jobs. You can't just phone somebody up and say, "Would you like a job?" and hope that they're going to accept it. You've actually got to advertise it. You've got to have a number of candidates. You've got to interview them, and you cut down the shortlist. But then I was headhunted. One day I was a poacher. The next day I was a gamekeeper.
That is so fun. And it just gives us a little bit of insight into your skills before this, that somebody was watching you from afar and they liked what you did as a journalist and
Well,
they felt like you had some integrity.
Well, I'd like to think that I was for almost 10 years accredited to the palace, a bit like White House correspondents. They're accredited to the White House. They've got fairly free access and they get given everything first. And I was accredited to the palace. There were only two of us. One was from the Press Association, the equivalent of Associated Press, and the other one was me. I was working for a commercial radio station, which also owned a commercial news service, which was the news service for the whole commercial radio network. So I was national. And I'd been doing that for almost 10 years. I'd interviewed most members of the family, didn't get my head chopped off or sent to the Tower of London. So I must have been doing something right. And lo and behold, on the eve of Australia, leaving for Australia, I had this phone call. Never looked back since.
We'll look back on some of your first few days here in a second, but let's run through some of these Diana questions I'd put together while reading the book. During Charles and Diana's marital crisis, you were caught between public expectation and palace discretion. That has to be a very difficult position to be in. Looking back, where was that line between transparency and protection, protecting what they did deserve privacy wise, protecting the mystique that surrounds the palace, and did it ever shift? Was that a difficult position for you to be in?
Yeah, it was extremely difficult. I mean, I've been walking a tightrope twice. Once in terms of what to say and what not to say, and the other one because I was Charles and Diana's press secretary. I had to juggle the time that I was spending with each one. For example, when we went on tour, I had to decide what I was going to do with him and what was I going to do with her. And if I did too much with him, she'd get upset. And if I did too much with her, he'd get upset. So it was a difficult balance. And I'm pleased to say I didn't fall off the tightrope.
That's very funny. What about how much you told the public when it came time to fess up? Did you worry about how far you could go? Did you worry about how far was too far? How do you announce the drama without people fearing for the future of the monarchy?
Well, it's a very difficult situation because in those days, the royal family drew a very fine dividing line between what was private and what was public. When they were out on the road, when they were on tour, when they were there being seen by the public, that was public. That was my job. That was the job of the then press office, communications office. Anything private, anything behind closed doors was off limits, and you weren't allowed to ask questions. And if you did ask a question, you were told to push off. It's none of your business. So they protected their privacy, but unfortunately, the privacy became very public. I mean, go to 1992, when Andrew Morton published his book, Diana, Her True Story. She swore blind to me in Budapest when I confronted her about it and said, "Did you help?" And I thought I was going to drop dead there and then. I mean, the look was unbelievable. You know, how dare you accuse a member of the royal family for helping a writer write a book about them? I knew she was lying, but you don't tell the Princess of Wales that she's lying. But she did come out with it eventually, but it took a few months for her to admit that she had helped. So very, very difficult. And what is quite interesting on that book, when it was serialized in the Sunday Times, we always used to do after our duties. And because I was Diana's press secretary, I was told, well, you're on duty on Sunday, and you're on duty next Sunday, and you're on duty the Sunday after, because she's your principal and you deal with it. And the first serialization, I didn't receive one phone call from the media. Not one.
Wow.
As far as they were concerned, as far as I was concerned, everything was there in print.
Yeah. Wow,
What can
that's
you say?
incredible. Do you
And
mind if go ahead?
yeah, and the other thing is that if you start getting into a conversation about these things, say, well, that's rubbish. The question then is, well, what
What's
about
the
this?
truth? Or what?
What's the
Yeah.
truth?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's like a rolling stone gathering moss that you suddenly find yourself in a pit and you can't get out.
Yeah, never complain, never explain. It's the easiest
Exactly.
way to go. Do you mind me asking what was the breaking point? What happened that made Diana go, actually, I'm in pretty deep and I better tell the people that are capable of helping me that I made a mistake? Not that she would ever say that, because she strikes me as somebody that,
She wouldn't say that. She phoned me at 5 o'clock in the morning on the morning of the first serialization in the Sunday Times, in a panic state of panic. What do I do? What do I do? I said, "Ma'am, you've done it." I mean, I was virtually accusing her there and
yeah.
then that she'd helped. And I said, the best thing you can do is lie low. You don't go out. You don't answer the telephone. You don't make telephone calls. You've got an engagement on Thursday. I'll be with you on Thursday. And you just stay put and you stay stum.
Mm,
And whether she did that, I really don't know because I wasn't going to babysit her.
right.
But she knew that she had done wrong. In the very same way, I quizzed her after she had done the Panorama interview in 1995. I said, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" She said, "It was a mistake. It's all very well shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted, but think."
Yeah.
And thinking is not one of their strong points.
Well, I mean, I have the question. I might as well just ask you here.
Go on then.
Does Diana's destructive behavior ever remind you of Harry? I mean, you just talked about not considering the full consequences of her actions, and it's a way I describe Harry all the time.
Well, Diana had a grievance. She had a grievance against her husband. She and Fergie, I wasn't going to mention that one, but still, I have
Might
mentioned
as
it.
well.
Might as well get them all in. They always complained that they'd never received help from anybody at Buckingham Palace, which was an absolute lie because people bent over backwards to help them. And you asking the question in what happened with Diana, do I see it in Harry? Not quite. Harry was egged on. Harry, I don't think would have done any of the stuff that he has done had he not married Meghan Markle.
That's a
Um,
very good point. But Diana had Fergie and all of these astrologers and psychics, and in some cases, journalists. I'm reading Diana Rama right now, and Andy Webb is talking about how Andrew Morton, before the Panorama interview, they were encouraging her to do an ITV documentary that they filmed some stuff for it, but she backed out of because it was too close to the Dembleby interview that King Charles did. So Diana had instigators around her too. I just don't think that there was anything in it for them. Whereas Meghan has become everything she ever wanted to be thanks to Harry's betrayal.
she's become everything that she wants to be. She's become everything because she's got a title. It's a lot better for her to be the Duchess of Sussex than Miss Meghan Markle, um, and she's trading on the title.
Yeah.
She's trading on anything that can help her. It will help her. But going back to Diana, Diana had a grievance. She went into a marriage. They were in love at the beginning, and it went pear shaped after about 4 or 5 years, which is very unfortunate. Diana had a grievance. She felt going into a marriage that it was an escape from the family, from Althorpe House, that she would have a relationship with somebody who loved her. He did in the beginning. She would be able to have a family and do for her children what her mother didn't do for her. She never forgave her mother for running off. And she did go to the marriage and come to the marriage with baggage. And that was the unfortunate part of it. But marriage is a very strange beast. When all the lust and the passion has worn off, you've actually got to work at it. It's a job, as is bringing up children. And it's very difficult doing a job when every time you blink, there is a headline in the newspaper. Diana blinked, Diana coughed, Diana scratched her arm. What is wrong? You can't live like that. And that was one of the biggest problems for both of them. and for any member of the royal family, not so much today, but very much in the late 80s and the 90s and the beginning of the noughties, that everything was analyzed, everything was published, every photograph, every mistake was dissected, and nobody can live like that. And eventually, you're going to crack, and Diana cracked.
A proper New Year reset isn't about extremes. It's about showing up as your best self every day. Beam is a company proudly founded in America, run by people who share our values, and they've built products that help you keep the promises you make to yourself, the promises that actually matter. Beam's best selling Dream Powder is a healthy nighttime blend packed with proven ingredients shown to improve sleep so you can wake up refreshed and ready to take on the day. Dream is made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients, reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, and melatonin. It's designed to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling amazing. No groggy hangover. The sea salt caramel flavor, absolute heaven, like indulgent hot cocoa without the guilt. Dream is made right here in America. No shortcuts. Founders guided by integrity and a strong work ethic. Beam has transformed over 28 million nights of sleep. So, if you've been waiting for the right time to try Dream, this is it. Go to shopbeam.com/Kinsey. Use code Kinsey for up to 40% off. Just $39 with my code. That's $1.25 per night. Shopbeam.com/Kinsey today. We mentioned the BBC interview. You've worked with the BBC. You've worked with Diana. How did you react when the Panorama betrayal became public? Were you angry? Did you sense it at all when you watched that interview? Did you think she's either been manipulated or this is all just a show? This is too highly choreographed. What was your instinct when you saw the interview, and what is your response today, knowing how Martin Bashir secured that interview with, maliciously, basically?
Well, firstly, when I saw the interview, I thought, what the hell is she doing? It was choreographed, it was rehearsed. Diana came out with things that she was pretty sharp and she was pretty good at the one-liners, but some of the one-liners in that were rehearsed. Everything was gone through meticulously, and I was angry with her, angry that not only had she done Andrew Morton, she'd gone back for more, but this
Yeah.
time on television, and the whole thing had been a con. And the BBC still have a lot to answer for, but they're still hiding undercover. They're still wringing their hands and sucking in their teeth and not really doing anything about it. And it's unfortunate that something like that should ever have happened. But that's the trouble when you get an organization that is so big that it's out of control.
Yeah, you can really sympathize and relate to Prince William's anger. He did that a few years ago. He did that press conference, and he was just seething. When you realize that Martin Bashir's sitting across from Diana privately in parking garages and wherever. I know she met with him multiple times before that interview, telling her that Prince Charles is out to kill her so that he can marry the nanny. I mean, I felt a little sorry for her once I realized all of the details, because I thought, okay, if this is a woman that truly is fearful for her life, then I am not as annoyed by the Panorama interview, because I I feel like it was done out of fear. Um, and that's just a horrible state to live in, afraid that somebody's trying to kill you. People are constantly listening to you.
Well, it's a dreadful state to live in, and it just shows you the arrogance that permeates through the whole of the BBC organization, that nobody questioned why Martin Bashir has got an interview with Diana, Princess of Wales. He was a nothing reporter. He was a general reporter. And all of a sudden, this guy has got an interview with Diana. How did he get it? Why did he get it? Nobody questioned it. Nobody at all, from the top to the bottom. They just let it roll. And it's been festering for years, and they've still not answered the questions as to why he got it, why they haven't taken greater action against him, because what the guy did in getting the interview was criminal, because
Mm.
he lied, he
And
falsified
there are
papers,
forged documents. Exactly right. Yeah.
forged documents. but
Literally.
nothing has been done about it, and that is the state of that organization. And unfortunately, it's the state of this country at the moment.
Dickie, that makes me sad. You write, well, another sad topic. Sorry to go here, but you write about urging the royal family to show their sadness after Diana's death rather than hiding away. And you even talk
Yeah,
about how,
I'm gonna stop you there
yeah,
now.
yeah.
You're saying hiding away. They weren't hiding away.
No, no, no. Well, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
Okay, go on.
But you also talk about suppressing your own grief. Now the narrative was at the time that the queen should be at Buckingham Palace. The queen needs to be there to console the entire world because of Diana's death. But history has been kinder to her since then, and people have realized. We've even seen Prince William in a documentary say she was exactly where she needed to be, loving on her grandchildren, worrying about us. Do you think that the change in tone towards Queen Elizabeth's reaction to Diana's death was organic, or did the palace have to work at explaining to people she was exactly where she was supposed to be at that moment, and she knew that the boys needed her?
Well, it wasn't a question of explaining. I was out in the precincts in front of Buckingham Palace when reporters were going around doing what we call in the business vox pops,
Mm,
interviewing people. And they were asking the question, just simple question, do you think the Queen should be in London? Well, the natural reaction was, yes, of course she should be in London. But had they asked the question, the Queen's at Balmoral, her grandchildren are there, they've lost their mother, do you think it's right that she stays to comfort them? Different answer,
yeah.
because people would have said, of course she's right. She's a grandmother. They're her grandchildren. They've lost their mother. They need the comfort. But it was a media driven story. They were
Mm,
looking for a story. They were desperate for a story. They had done all the biographies. They'd done all the sort of ups and downs over the years between Diana and Charles. They were now looking for something to really sort of slap the headlines and sell the newspapers.
Dickie,
And
Dickie, were they trying to distract from the fact that some people blamed them for her death because there were
I
photographers chasing her that night?
I think it was an element of that. Interesting, you say photographers chasing her. Up until Diana's death, the media, the British media, they bought paparazzi pictures.
Hmm.
It didn't matter how they got them; they bought them. After the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, and an inquiry, they stopped buying pictures. They just got frightened off. So there was an element of blame there, and I think they were trying to deflect the blame because people were angry and people were being quite sensible. Say, I mean, in cases they were saying, well, "You people did it," blaming the media. But the majority were saying the Queen needs to be in London. What they expected of her in London, I really don't know. Did they expect her to go walkabout? To go and shake hands, to be tactile and cuddle people and smooth their ruffled hair in grief. No, she did the right thing. She came back to London on the Friday. She did a walkabout at St James's Palace. She paid private respects to Diana in the Chapel Royal. She was applauded when she did the walkabout. She was applauded again when she went on walkabout at outside Buckingham Palace to look at the floral tributes. She spoke to mourners. She put flowers down on behalf of mourners. She read the inscriptions, and when she left, she again she got was applauded. And then 2 hours later came the tribute, and the tribute was I suppose the icing on the cake because I had insisted, I had organised that with the BBC that they film it. And I'd insisted that the French doors remain open. They argued, said sound would interfere. And I said there's going to be absolutely no separation between those in the precincts listening to the tribute and those watching on television. They are one, and it actually worked. And at the end of her tribute, there was applause from out in the precincts, and it filtered through down the microphones of the television cameras. So it did work, and that was a turning point because people did realize by the time they'd got their anger out in the 5 days before the funeral and heard the tribute, they probably came to realize that this woman really cares.
Hmm.
Uh, and she made that very clear. And she made it very clearer the day after when the gun carriage went past. She bowed. And the only other time the Queen ever bowed was on Remembrance Sunday at the Cenotaph. But here
That's
she
so
was
beautiful.
bowing to the coffin being borne by a gun carriage.
You
And
were
people
cru-
noticed that.
they did absolutely. You were crucial in returning Diana's body from Paris. Was that a difficult process? Had you ever had to do logistically something like that before? And were you overwhelmed at all by the idea?
I was overwhelmed by the whole sense of occasion. I wasn't involved in the actual bringing Diana home, but I was involved when she arrived home at Northolt Airport, west of London. We had something like 300 media there, and they were shell shocked
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't quite believe it until they saw the coffin
Mm-hmm.
coming out of the hold of the aircraft. And I didn't quite believe it either. And I, my eyes were watering. I thought, oh, it's the wind blowing in my eyes, but it wasn't. It was a very sad moment to think that I had spoken to that lady 2 days before she had gone to the south of France. Um, Happy going on holiday. I'm not sure she was happy on going on holiday with the person that she was going on holiday with,
I know.
but
Ugh.
happy to be going to the south of France, and to come back plain and simply in a box.
Mm.
It's a terrible thing to happen.
I feel like watching those visuals that what stood out to me the most was how fragile Prince Charles at the time, not the king, Prince Charles seemed. His grief was so sincere. And coming from the States where we didn't have the internet back then, all we really had was tabloid, magazines that were on the aisles of the grocery stores. I'd always considered him the bad guy in this war of the Windsors. And so to see him so fragile and so delicate and so just unraveling was something that will probably stay with me for the rest of my life. And it changed my opinion of him in a positive way.
He was grieving at the loss of Diana. He was grieving not just for himself, but for his sons, because the sons had lost their mother at the prime time of their ages, and it was a very difficult time for him because he was being blamed for it,
Mm-hmm.
and he wasn't to blame. They'd been divorced the year before. Interesting enough, you said just now we didn't have the internet. We just got it,
Yeah. Well,
um,
yeah. Well,
and
I didn't
and
have access to it. I was a little girl.
not many people did. I mean, we'd launched the Buckingham Palace website in May of that year, and it proved to be very useful. Dare I say, a very useful tool at the time of Diana's death. But going back to Charles, yes, he was very fragile, and he was taking a lot of the blame on his shoulders for what had happened, and it wasn't his fault.
No.
Look, marriages break down all the time, but not all marriages are splashed over the newspapers day in and day out for years. But his was, Diana's was, and he felt very guilty about the whole thing.
I mentioned some interesting characters around Diana around the time of her death. Well, just around that time where kind of chaos was around every corner. Had she had the right people that she could truly trust around her, which she purged a significant amount of because Martin Bashir lied to her and told her that she was being spied on by all of these people and presented her with these forged documents that were completely dishonest about very important people that were close to her spying on her and being paid for it. They would have kept her away from Muhammad Al Fayed. I mean, it's just within the last few years that we've realized that Muhammad, according to recent BBC investigations, was a predator. So yeah, I mean, there were so many dominoes that fell in unfortunate directions that weren't even remotely related to Prince Charles at the time.
That's absolutely right. The problem is that Diana was very lonely. Um, she couldn't do anything on the spur of the moment. It all had to be planned. If she wanted to go out, she had to tell her protection officer where she wanted to go. A protection officer had to get hold of the local constabulary to check out that it was okay. It was very difficult, and nobody can actually live like that. And when your children most of the time are away from home. They're either at school, or on this particular occasion, they were up at Balmoral with their dad and their grandparents. Loneliness is a terrible enemy to confront, and very difficult to overcome it. Her friends were away. She got rid of her protection officers in 1994. She felt them to be too intrusive. She felt that they were spying on her. That's how, dare I say it, paranoid she had become. So she was leading a very difficult life, some of it which was self-inflicted. You mentioned earlier on, she was talking to journalists. She always talked to journalists. She just wanted to be loved. She just wanted to talk to people, and the only way she could do it was either over the telephone or meet them secretly, um, with the help of a protection officer. She led a very difficult life. Some of it was self-inflicted, some of it was avoidable, but the consequences were terrible.
Right. Dodie, who had a fiance when she met him. No, thank you. Unemployed Dodie. No, thank you, Dickie. Not my cup of tea. Let's talk about a sweeter story. You're a new face at the palace, and you were told, speaking of Balmoral, that you had an invitation there to meet the Queen. And in your book, it's so sweet. You describe being surprised by being driven by Her Majesty in a Land Rover to a cottage where she and Prince Philip had prepared a picnic so that they could get to know you better. What was your response to such a sweet, humble, and I don't know, surprising invitation?
Well, when I was told that I was going up there, and I asked why, I was told, "Well, you're going to meet the Queen." I said, "But I met her. Um, I'd met her at media receptions on royal tours." He said, "Yes, but you've never worked for her. So pack your bags, and this is when you're going." So I did go, and I arrived at Balmoral Castle. It was raining cats and dogs, and to be told by a footman when I arrived, taking me to my room, that you're going on a picnic, I thought, this is very weird. But he said, "No, don't worry, you're going to a log cabin on the estate, so it's all undercover." And I waited in the entrance hall, and this 5-foot-4 whirlwind rushed past me. He said, "Come on, get in." And I got in the Land Rover, and I started looking around. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe I was looking for a map to navigate, but not having ever been there before, I thought it was a bit stupid. So I sat back while she drove. She was a good driver. She learned to drive during the war, but she had a bit of a lead weight in her right foot, so we went quite fast. It wasn't dangerous or anything like that. When we arrived at this log cabin, she dived inside to get things ready. There were no servants. And when I went, I was left outside with Prince Philip, and we were talking. He knew I'd lived for a time in southern Africa. So we were talking about game conservation and game parks and game ranges and what have you. So we had a sort of an affinity in terms of African game and bush. Went inside, and I realized there were just four of us at this lunch: late Queen, late Prince Philip, lady in waiting, and me. And sat down. I'm not going to tell you what we talked about
That's
because
fine.
that's private. Um, but we helped ourselves out of Tupperware. Um, it was cold meat, salads. It was very nice. We had china plates, silver cutlery. And at the end of it, the Queen said, "We better clear up." And I took it as my cue to do the washing up. And I started washing up, and I heard this footfall behind me, thinking, "Oh, how nice, a lady in waiting coming to give me a hand." And I said casually over my shoulder, without even looking, "Okay, I'll wash you dry." And this very familiar voice said, "No, I'll wash you dry."
And it was the
So,
Queen.
so ma'am put her hands, no rubber gloves, into the soap suds and did the washing up, and I did the drying up. And we were chatting away there like an old married couple.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that you have that memory. Did anything similar ever happen in the future with you and the Queen, or did you never find yourself in a log cabin, in the kitchen of a log
No,
cabin with
no,
Queen
the
Elizabeth
log
II?
cabin, the log cabin was a one-off. She did. Um, she looked at my ties. She never said anything, which I thought was rather nice. But I was always a bit of a maverick, so I did wear loud ties. But I went to a reception at the beginning of, it was around about March, beginning of March 2020. It's 5 years ago now. But that was the last reception that she ever went to at Buckingham Palace because it was in the throes being resurfaced. And she always liked to talk to her retirees. She didn't care about people who left to go and make more money.
Yeah.
The retirees, those who hadn't jumped ship, she liked to talk to. And I went to talk to her. And as I took my leave, which you do, and then bow at the neck, there was a glint in her eye. And I thought, oh gosh, something is coming. And she looked at me in the eye and she said, I see you're still wearing those dreadful ties.
Well, wait, there's another cute story you tell in your book. After your retirement, inevitably you get called, of course you do, by all of the media outlets around the UK because they're like, you would be the perfect correspondent expert. And you do inevitably return to Buckingham Palace, and as an expert, as a correspondent, I believe.
Oh,
And you're spotted by the Queen. And she looks at you and she says, "What are you doing here?" And you say you both laugh in that moment. And so my question I had is, what did that reveal to you about her sense of humor? But you're telling me right now she had a great sense of humor. I love these. I love her poking fun at your ties, and I love her looking at you going, "What are you doing here?"
yeah, she said, what am I doing here? And I don't know, I just came out with it. I said, well, I've missed you so much, and I thought I'd come back and see you.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet. I love that
Um,
story.
but it's the sort of thing that I did. I mean, she didn't reprimand me or anything like that.
Yeah,
She just saw the funny side of it, and I was only there for 2 weeks.
yeah.
It was fun.
Absolutely. Tell me about restoring and renovating Windsor Castle. What was that experience like for you? Windsor Castle is one of my, I mean, honestly, I don't think I go over there without stopping at Windsor Castle. Every time I got on an airplane, Windsor Castle is just such a sweet little sanctuary for me. So, what was that experience like? I think I would be devastated seeing it in the state that you saw it in. And then the process of restoring it to its glory. Can you give me a little bit of insight on that?
Well, the fire was interesting. There's an interesting story when the fire is raging, and I had a phone call at Buckingham Palace from one of the radio stations in Berkshire, saying there's a fire at Windsor Castle. What do you know? And it was the first thing I'd heard, first time I'd heard of it. Nobody at Buckingham Palace had been even contacted by anybody at Windsor Castle to say, we've got a fire, can you send people out? And then I phoned the castle, and the way you phone the castle is you get the switchboard and they put you through. And I said, have you got a fire there? And she knew who I was. And she said, oh, I don't know. I can't say anything. I said, well, can you put me through to the superintendent? No, he's not around. He's doing his rounds. And I thought, my God, there's a fire at Windsor Castle, and nobody is saying anything. They're stonewalling me. And then within about 10 minutes of putting the phone down, they did call. And half an hour later, I drove in to the castle precincts. I think I broke every speed limit down the motorway. I had my hazard warning lights on, which is against the law. I just drove. And I arrived there, and there was something like 300 or 400 media all wanting to get in.
Already?
And already, yes,
Wow.
they descended on the castle. And fortunately, there's what we call the moat road, which is at the bottom of the round tower. And it sort of links one part to the other part of the castle. So everybody went behind there, and it formed a barrier, and it actually worked. And I was there for 3 days. I was there for the Friday, the Saturday, and the Sunday. I was alongside late Queen when she did arrive on the Friday afternoon. We went sort of partially inside to look at what was going on. It was devastating for her. It was somewhere that she had grown up um, in her childhood. It's somewhere where she lived during the World War II, and it meant a lot to her. Windsor was more of a home, was a home in southern England, whereas Balmoral was a home in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
That's the comparison. They were both homes, they were both favorites. And she got dumped in it by a government minister because on the Saturday, we'd had a meeting. When I say we, I was representing the press office. There were the bean counters. There was the Lord Chamberlain's office, the man who is in overall charge of the whole of the royal household. And Peter Brook, who was the Minister of State at the time, they call it culture, media, and sport today, and digital. In those days, it was Department of Culture. And he was briefed quite clearly. The press are going to ask you questions. Do not talk about the costs because we don't know. The fire is still being damped down by the firemen. Do not ask about restoration because we don't know. We don't know the extent of the damage. Do not answer who is going to pay for it because we don't know, because we don't know what the costs are. So he walks out gung ho. First question from a television correspondent: who's going to pay for it? The government will pay, he says. And my goodness, the headlines castigating the Queen for at least 3, 4 weeks leading up to Christmas. It was horrendous. There were people saying, well, she lives there, she should pay for it. And I got phone calls from the media saying, well, she lives there, she should pay for it. I said, okay, Downing Street burns down. Are you going to tell the Prime Minister he's got to pay for it?
Right.
As the Parliament burns down, are you going to tell the MPs they've got to pay for it? Don't be ridiculous.
Wow.
But eventually, it was decided that Buckingham Palace would be opened to visitors in the summer months, in late July, August, and September, when the Queen was up at Balmoral, and it, together with new visitor structure at Windsor Castle, would pay for the restoration. Restoration came out something like, I think it was about 36 million, and tourism paid for about 28 million of that.
Wow.
So it was a lot of money. The Queen actually put in 2 million of her own money, which she didn't have to do, but she did. But it was tourism that actually paid. And in the old days, I mean, you go to Windsor Castle and you have to pay to go in and you see everything.
Mm-hmm.
Before the fire, you paid to go into the castle itself. You paid separately to go to the doll's house. You paid separately to go into St. George's Chapel. This was all brought under one umbrella, and through that, they raised enough funds to be able to pay for the restoration. It was an uphill battle, but it actually worked. And as far as the restoration is concerned, I organized media occasions every sort of 8 or 9 months for them to go there, to go all over the scaffolding, wherever they wanted to go, talk to whoever they wanted to talk to about the restoration. You said restoring it to its former glory. Well, thankfully, it was not restored to its former glory. St. George's
Better?
Hall, very much better. St. George's Hall had what is called a sort of Gothic ceiling. I think
Oh.
wasn't hammer beam, but it was a pretty ugly ceiling. It just
Oh.
had beams right at the top. What you have now, you have oak beams hand carved out of 140 oak trees, and you've seen
Wow.
what it looks like.
Gorgeous.
Um, it is stunning. In fact, when I had organised the press day, and this was the first time they would have seen it finished. I had them gathered there, had the doors opened, and there was a stunned silence. They just
Oh.
couldn't believe what they were seeing. It was quite magnificent, and I think people who go there today just realize the sort of magnificence of the whole place.
Oh, it is just so special. You understand why it was a sanctuary for the Queen. It's peaceful and it just it does feel like a home. There's something so warm about it. Also, just everyone that lives there is just so kind and sweet as well. Oh my gosh, I have to tell you about a total game changer. Peak's liver detox protocol. You may not know it, but your liver handles a lot: energy, hormones, digestion, and even your mood. But with all the stress and toxins from everyday life, it needs some love. Forget harsh cleanses. Peak delivers gentle daily support inspired by traditional Chinese medicine. Their routine uses two simple blends. The first is a warming turmeric mix with cinnamon and black pepper, designed to help the body absorb it better and support the liver while calming inflammation. The second is a ginger and cinnamon blend that helps with blood flow, digestion, bloating, and immune support. The magic is how they work together to activate and flush for better digestion, stable energy, less brain fog, and that light, clear feeling. My energy is consistent now. Skin is clearer and less bloating. That's Peak, where spirit meets science. Redefine your standard of health Secure 20% off your order and begin your intentional wellness journey today at peaklife.com/Kinsey. That's PIQUE life.com/Kinsey. You lived within the Kensington Palace property, which I think is incredible. I talked to Victoria, your daughter, about that experience and what a unique experience that was. I was like, I can't believe you lived in Kensington Palace. And she's like, well, we did have a bomb threat. So she kept it, made sure that I knew that there were highs and lows. But what was that like for you? And what do you think? Because you and I were texting over the weekend watching the Meghan special on ITV or Channel 5, I apologize, Channel 5. What do you think when you hear Harry and Meghan complaining about the Kensington Palace experience? Because to me, they sound so entitled and ungrateful.
Well, there wasn't I was going to say an element of entitlement, but it was entitlement. They
Yeah.
felt that they were entitled. They were complaining about Nottingham Cottage. The media call it Not Cot, um, and it's a lovely little cottage. It's not big. It has 2 bedrooms. Well, if you're a married couple, you only need one,
Yeah.
unless you've done something wrong and you're booted out into the second bedroom. But I had a colleague of mine who was Prince Philip's private secretary. He and his wife lived there. And it's a charming cottage. It's not big, but it's a stepping stone to the next best thing. And they were offered the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester's apartment, which they turned down, a big apartment. But I don't think there was ever any plan for her to stay here. So you could have offered them Windsor Castle and they wouldn't have stayed. She was hell bent on getting back to America. She got what she wanted. She got a husband, got a title. Well, the title was a bonus,
Yeah.
but she come over here. She wanted a husband. She got a husband, happened to be rich, which was a bonus, and hightailed it back to the States. I think that was always the game plan. There were those who criticized me and saying, "How can you say that?" Well, the proof is in the pudding, isn't it?
It truly is. I mean, the woman's a jam maker, a loose fruit spread maker. Now, all of her dreams are coming true. How terrifying. Did you enjoy your experience at Kensington Palace? So I did see that there was a near break-in over the holiday. A 39-year-old man that he was at least, I don't know how close he got, but he was spotted at the gates by security guards twice. You had a near scare, if I recall correctly, with Victoria. What is it like to live there? Do you feel like it's primarily, mostly a peaceful experience to live at Kensington
Yeah,
Palace?
it is pretty peaceful. You always get the odd have-a-go merchants, but yes, somebody climbed over the fence, over the railings to get in. Anybody wanting to do something will make a good effort to try and do it. There are no high-profile royals living there anymore. William and Catherine are out at Windsor. The Duke of Kent, he might have been there. The Duke and Duchess of Gloucester might have been there, but it was over the holiday period, so mostly they're away. So it's a complex, and it used to be called the Aunt Heap, aunt as in auntie heap, because all the royal aunts used to live there. But those days have long gone by. It's now it's still a very big complex. There are not many people living there, and those critics saying, well, there should be people living there, but it's a decision that governments take, the royals take, as to what to do with it. Do you open it up as accommodation for people who can afford it, or do you leave it as is? While there are still some royals still using it, William and Catherine still use it for official entertaining. And my guess is and I say one day, when he becomes king, he will probably use Kensington Palace more for entertaining, in much the same way as the King and Queen use Clarence House, except state entertaining, which will always be at Buckingham Palace, because that is monarchy UK PLC headquarters.
What about, I've read reports that the current king, would consider making some of these old homes or castles, palaces, estates, museums. I love that idea. Do you think that that could actually come to fruition?
Well, Windsor Castle is a sort of museum, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
It is open to the public. Queen Victoria was the first monarch to open Windsor Castle to the public way back in the 19th century. It was an initiative by Prince Albert, and so we're talking way back in the 19th century. Buckingham Palace, I suppose one day it'll be more access to visitors than it has been in the past. It's still in the sort of stages of being renewed, renovated, and that's not going to finish for another year. Sometime next year, 2027, it'll be finished. Then I suppose they'll decide how much of it will be open to the public. Problem is that it is the headquarters of the British monarchy. It is still being used for state functions. It is still being used for receptions. So it's the infrastructure you need to get people around. Um, at the time of the summer opening, for example, they take up the priceless carpeting and put down hard wearing carpeting, because if you've got something like 400,000 people traipsing over the floors,
I'm
it
one of
does
them.
wear,
I'm one of them.
yeah, it does wear down the carpets. So they've got to take a decision as to when will it open, how long it will open, and take it from there. My guess is Buckingham Palace will be open a lot more than it is and has been of late, and that will be a good thing because the king is quite firmly ensconced in Clarence House. The private accommodation at Buckingham Palace is not wonderful. It's basic in that the number of rooms are not huge. They're on the northern wing of the palace, and they just don't afford the sort of entertaining that you can do, say, at Clarence House. If you do entertain at Buckingham Palace, you're using one of the staterooms, and that doesn't work because it's rather cold. Whereas entertaining at Clarence House is not. So getting back to what I was saying earlier, William and Catherine, they still got Kensington Palace apartment, and they will probably use that more when it comes to entertaining, when they have to entertain. But for now, they're living at Forest Lodge at Windsor, and they'll stay there or use Anmer Hall as they do at holiday time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like knowing that they're kind of off in their own little world, having their family time because we never know. We never know when William's life he's going to wake up king one day, and so I think it's fine that they take advantage of him being the heir and loving on his babies for as long as he can in private.
Yeah, he is absolutely right, and it's a bit of a double whammy, isn't it? Because Catherine is in not in remission, but she is not having any treatment for cancer. That stopped in 2020 September 2024. So um, he's conscious that it could come back at any time because it's one of those things that does come back. Maybe she'll be lucky and it doesn't. So he wants as much good time and quality time with the family, something that he didn't have as a child because circumstances. Forget about the fact that Charles and Diana weren't getting on, but because they were so committed to duty, there was such a call on their time for public duty that the amount of time they were able to spend with their children was not quality enough, in much the same way as the late Queen and Prince Philip experienced when Charles and Anne were born in 48 and 1950. They didn't have that quality time because the king was ill. The Queen was standing in for him, Princess Elizabeth. And when he died in 1952, it was all systems go. She went away after the coronation for 7 months on a Commonwealth tour. That went with the job. And so she didn't see those early days of her children growing up. And I think the King quite correctly says to William, there is duty, but you need to spend as much time with the family as you can because there's going to come a time when it's not going to be possible.
Ooh. And we don't want that to be anytime soon.
We don't want that anytime soon.
Looking back, which media challenge that you experienced in the palace, Diana's death, Windsor fire, the breakdown of the Wales marriage, Diana and Charles, was the toughest to manage, and what did you learn from those experiences?
In their own way, they were all tough to manage. And if you talk about the end of Charles and Diana's marriage in November 1992, um, and the Windsor fire in 1992, a few weeks before that, that whole year, as the late
Nightmare.
Queen said, was her annus horribilis. It was a dreadful year because anything that could go wrong did go wrong. None of her making,
Yeah.
but it was her family that was imploding. So that was a tough year because every day almost there would be a phone call. Can you tell me about Diana doing this? Well, didn't know anything about Diana doing something or something that appears in the paper. What did she mean by that? And I'd phone and say, where did this come from? Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you. I spoke to a journalist or whatever. That's what was actually going on. So 92 was a tough year. The death of Diana, Princess of Wales, it was a tough week because the media had an agenda, and there's no way that you can do anything to deter them from pursuing that agenda. The rest of it was fairly easy to manage. I feel sorry for them today, where they've got the Sussex exiles in Montecito in California, and you've got Andrew Mountbatten Windsor sort of hunkering down still at Royal Lodge, and they have to deal with that. But they're dealing with it pretty well. The king has been robust in terms of his brother. He's brought the family into a state of disrepute, or could have done had action not been taken. He was left with a bit of a ticking time bomb by his mother, who was only going to go so far. But she was frail, she was old, and she was tired and just didn't really want to do any more than she had done, that she had to do. But Charles has done extremely well on that front. And the sooner Andrew is out of Royal Lodge, it's never going to settle down. There's still going to more come out from your side of the pond on this whole Jeffrey Epstein saga. But at least it's getting Andrew out into the country somewhere on the Sandringham estate. We don't know where, and I don't particularly care where he goes, as long as it's out of Windsor,
Yeah.
and out of sight, out of mind.
So would you say that you don't envy the current team that's having to deal with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Megxit, and the King's cancer? Because having to navigate, and Catherine's cancer, having to navigate, again, talking about allowing them their privacy, but giving the public just enough information that they're not worried about the future of the institution, that's a tough, balancing act.
It is a tough balancing act, and given that they announced both Catherine's abdominal operation, the King's prostate, followed by the cancer, followed by Catherine announcing that she had a cancer. I think it's a sort of communications masterstroke, because if they had just disappeared and not been seen, all sorts of questions would have been asked, all sorts of speculation, unhelpful speculation. But by coming out up front and being proactive and saying, this is what is wrong, we're not going to say exactly what it is, which was the right move, because then people would start talking about that particular cancer when there are so many other cancers that would be left far behind. So they've done the right thing. As far as the Montecito lot are concerned, there's not a lot to say about them.
Yeah.
If it's confirming that Harry visited his father, they don't want to say anything more, because if they say anything more, it'll appear in the media, or they'll be accused of brainwashing everybody about what is happening. So they're saying just enough, confirming that Harry met his father. End of. As far as Mountbatten Windsor is concerned, well, they're keeping their powder dry there. The king has made his decision. Title stripped. He's no longer a prince. He's no longer a duke. He is now playing Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He's being kicked out of Royal Lodge, Windsor. He's got a perfectly legal lease. He could say, well, I'm staying here till October this year, because he has to give 12 months notice. But if he knows what's good for him, that he'll get out PDQ as soon as accommodation is ready for him at Sandringham.
I'm glad you mentioned the King's PR team working with Princess Catherine's PR team. There are rumors about, these two teams not getting along. Do the separate PR teams clash, or do they try to work in harmony? Do they share goals? I'd love you to clear up that rumor, because even this week, there was a beautiful cover of the Times, about Queen Catherine, the future with Queen Catherine. And why wouldn't we talk about that? This is a woman that survived cancer. She is the future of the monarchy, and her 44th birthday's this week. I can understand that tone, but there are rumors that the King's PR team are disappointed by that. They're frustrated with that cover because it somehow makes Queen Camilla smaller, or it somehow is negative towards Queen Camilla. So can you talk to me a little bit about how they work in sync, if they do work in sync, or what your reaction to those rumors are that there's any sort of animosity between homes?
Those rumors were floating around when I was working for Charles and Diana way back in the 1980s and early 90s. It's always a bit of mischief making, but um, in those days it was St James's Palace. St James's Palace don't talk to Buckingham Palace, and Buckingham Palace don't talk to St James's Palace, and they're both mixing the pot and they're both briefing against each other. And here we are, we've gone full circle, new generation of reporters, they're doing exactly the same. They are liaising, they are communicating with each other, because at the end of the day, it's all about the monarchy. It's not about individuals, it's about the institution, the survivability of the institution. And if you start getting briefings, one house against the other house, then you're going to put a big question mark over, well, why we've got this institution in the first place. So they are working in harmony. They are doing obviously different things. They've got different goals. They've got different jobs. The King's job is not, he did the Prince of Wales bit. William is doing it his way. Charles did it his way. He is now sovereign. He's doing it his way. And when William becomes king, in the fullness of time, he will do it his way. So the whole idea that they're working against each other is absolute nonsense. But it's one of those things that rears its ugly head every so often, because somebody is sitting looking at the sky. What can I write about today? Ah, yes, the War of the Waleses, the war between the Wales household and the King's household. It just ain't happening.
I love that you said that. Thank you so much. Having worked in the palace press office during the time of Harry's parents, how do you view the continued shakeup of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's communications team? James Holt now confirmed the latest departure following almost immediately Meredith
Meredith
Maines.
Maines.
Yeah, and there was the Netflix girl that only lasted 3 months. From your experience, what do you think this level of turnover suggests about the challenges of managing Harry and Meghan's PR today?
I'm not sure it's about the challenge of managing their PR. It's about the challenge of going to work there in the first place. Why would anybody, why would any sensible person go and work there in the first place? They have a reputation. Well, she has a reputation of being difficult. Um, she'll call it something else. She'll call it efficient. She'll call it her right.
She's an assertive
Assertive.
woman.
Yes. Yeah. Who needs that? Like a hole in the head. No, I think you've got to ask yourself, why do these people go and work for the Sussexes? They have a reputation. They've got over 6 years, they've had something like 18 people work
Mm,
for them. I think
work
that's the figure.
That's
Uh,
that, and that's just the office numbers. I've had people reach out to me that worked in their household that said if you counted the domestic turnover, whether it be nannies, whether it be housekeepers, gardeners, whatever, that turnover is just as bad.
so it does say a lot about the employers, doesn't it? Or one particular employer, that she's not easy. I don't think anybody in their right mind should go and work there. But if you want to get beaten up, go and get beaten up. And then go away and lick your wounds. Is it good on the CV that you only lasted a few weeks or only lasted a few months? I'm not terribly sure. I don't think people care about that sort of thing anymore.
Oh,
But
well,
I
that's
want to
interesting.
pick up. I want to pick up on the Sunday Times magazine, that on Catherine. I think it was a bit premature.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
we yes, it was a nice article. It was harmless, but at the end of the day, we have a king who has got a cancer. He is still having treatment, albeit it's going to be reduced this year. And then you have a magazine sort of writing about uh, Catherine and going to be a future queen. We've got a queen, we've got a king. Let's write about them. Catherine's time will come. We don't need to have it rammed down our throats. Yes, she's doing a terrific job. I hope she's going to do more, and she will, in her own time, will do more. But she needs to come to terms with the cancer. She needs to come to terms with getting her children settled in new schools, and she needs to decide what it is she wants to pursue in the public arena. She is working behind the scenes. She's working at Forest Lodge. She's not doing nothing, but she needs to be seen out in public, and occasionally she is. But she needs to be seen to be doing a lot more, and that'll come. But don't push it. But I think too, in talking of pushing, don't push the fact that one day she will be queen. That time will come. There'll be time to write all sorts of things. But let's be happy that we've got a king, a queen. He's got a cancer. They're both in their 70s. Let them enjoy it.
Yeah, the king waited a long time for this, so we should appreciate it. Last question. Thank you so much. You've been so gracious with your time today. How would you compare media strategy then, from this time frame that you write about in your book, with today's social media environment? Does social media make the royals more accessible, or does it jeopardize the mystique? Do you see the strengths and the weaknesses? What is your take when you're scrolling through Instagram and you see all these glossy videos and happy music and things like that?
Social media, as far as I'm concerned, is a cesspit. And it's a bit of a danger to the monarchy, because you can say anything on it as long
Hmm.
as it's not libelous. You can say anything on it. You can lie on it, and people get away with it. In my day, yeah, we didn't have social media. The problem is in my day, because there were so many things happening, because the royals were actually facilitating journalists in some of their stories, that we in the communications office were being proactive. Correct that. We were being reactive. Today, they are proactive. Yes, there's a bit of reaction, but it majors on proactive. And that's
Don't
the
you think that
difference.
that's the difference between the palace and Harry and Meghan's team? They are reactive,
Well,
and
they
the
are
palace
reactive
is
because
proactive.
the palace is proactive, and Harry and Meghan's teams are reactive because they've got two people that are a nightmare.
Yeah.
And how do you react to a nightmare? No, it's very different to then and now. I wouldn't like to be working there with social media the way it is. There is no control over it. The government talk about having control, but there isn't any. You get in Australia, they ban it to under 16s, which is quite right. But at the end of the day, anybody wants to do something, they're going to do it. Anybody wants to get something, they're going to get it. And it's just one of those unfortunate tools that we've got to live with. We don't like it, but it's there and it's there to stay. And it'll probably, dare I say, get worse.
On Duty with the Queen is available wherever you get your books. Also, it's available in Audible version. So if you like listening to books, which I do, I love listening to books. It's there waiting for you at Audible. You're in your Audible app, and you can get it on Amazon, at a used bookstore, wherever you get your books. It's a incredible read. So much fun information about your life unrelated to the palace, too, about the way that you get there, and your family. You grow up kind of lonely. It's a sweet read. I got to know a lot about you, Dickie. I loved you even
I,
more than I already do.
yeah, I kind of bared my soul. You mentioned the audio book. I had fun doing that.
Hmm.
I did the narration on that. I did get a bit emotional when I got to the funeral of Diana,
Mm,
but I got through it,
you
and I
did.
enjoyed it. But I did bare my soul. And in fact, when I first wrote it, I gave it to Victoria to read, and she said, "Well, it's a good page turner. But what about this, and this?" And by the time we'd gone through the this, and this, we got another 22 storylines.
Wow. Did the
Yeah,
publisher ask you to take anything out just to keep it a certain length? Or,
no,
sometimes they're
no,
like, we need you to shorten this.
No, Victoria said, you started talking about it, do the lot. So I
Yeah.
did.
Oh, amazing. So we aren't going to read, well, I know this for a fact since I did, but if you're questioning whether or not to purchase the book, I can confidently say you won't read it and feel like you're being excluded from anything. You go in, you share all. All right, agree with us, disagree with us on the many topics we discussed. Ask Dickie about anything I missed. I forgot to ask him because Dickie is a regular on this channel, and I'll ask him the next time we speak. But let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Dickie Arbiter, what a pleasure it was to pick your brain and get to know more about you. And you're just so knowledgeable about this topic. I'm so grateful to consider you a friend. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I'm flattered that you devoted this whole program, the whole show, to me.
Our first 2026 date, and it's all about On Duty by Dickie Arbiter. All right, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again next time. Bye, everyone.